The Spectre Video Hardware. Part 4, mid-1983. The SV328 Mark I computer. The SV328 is an 8-bit home computer introduced by Spectre Video in June 1983 at the Summer CES in Chicago. It was a business-targeted model of the Spectre Video range. The SV328 was sporting a compact full-travel keyboard with numeric keypad. The SV328 is considered to be the last predecessor before the MSX computer line. The SV328 had 80 kilobytes RAM, comprising of 64 kilobytes available for software and the remaining 16 kilobytes for video memory, this being a respectable amount for its time. Other than the keyboard and RAM, this machine was identical to its little brother, the SV318.
The SV328 history.
With the Spectre Video SVI328 launched in 1983, it was a powerful 8-bit home computer of its time. An upgrade from the early SVI318 with just 32 kilobits RAM. The 328 was featuring 80 kilobytes RAM internal and a full keyboard with numeric keypad, and CPM support with expansion, this all serving as a foundation for the influential MSX home computer standard. Developed by Spectre Video with partners like Bondwell for manufacturing and ASCII for software, it offered strong basic programming capabilities and was known for its quality and user-friendliness, all of this leading to it licensing the SVI328 design for MSX development.
Key features and technical specs.
The SVI318 with more RAM, 80 kilobytes total, 64 kilobytes usable, and a superior keyboard is powered by a Zilog 88 CPU. It used a TMS 9918 VTP for graphics, 256 by 192, 16 colors, and AY38910 sound chip, with support for cartridges, cassette, and floppy disks. The SVI328's architecture heavily influenced the MSX standard, a unified home computer design promoted by Microsoft Japan's ASCII Corporation to create software compatibility across different machines. The SV328 ran Microsoft Extended Basic, but could also boot the CPM operating system with an added floppy drive system, and this making it very versatile for its era. While well regarded for its build and features, it competed with the Commodore 64 and ZX Spectrum, with Spectre Video aiming for the growing home computer market.
Changes and a gray area.
Spectre Video faced financial difficulties despite the SVI328's potential in the market, this leading to a deal where its technology was licensed to Microsoft for MSX development, this then providing a financial boost to the company. The SVI328's design paved the way for the SVI728, Spectre Video's first fully MSX-compliant machine. Though the SV328 itself isn't fully MSX compatible, but it is a close precursor to it. Later versions like the Mark II featured cost-reduced designs, like integrated RF modulators, large-scale integration, and different motherboard layouts, while retaining core functionality. The SVI328 remains a significant machine in 8-bit home computer history, all of this representing Spectre Video's efforts to create a robust home computer and playing a pivotal role in the development of the MSX standard in computers. With a reference to the operating system being Microsoft Extended Basic, it is not to be confused with MSX Basic, although some marketing at the time claimed that Microsoft Extended is what MSX stood for. More than 130 original games were released to the system, with a lot more homebrew titles, now for avid collectors.
So, the Spectre Video 328. Now this became a real business machine in the sense back in the day, and with the addition of the super expanders became a very capable machine which ran Microsoft Basic and also CPM 2.2 and a few later iterations of, I think it was 2.23 and maybe a couple of others, and then when they brought out the very rare hard drive version which was used for only local networking and could be done between Spectre Videos or the earlier MSXs like the 728s, etc., then it was just used for file storage and retrieval. But anyway, let's have a look at the 328 inside and out. Right guys, so here we have it, 328 Mark I, and these came with the increased RAM and ROM as opposed to the 318s. These came with a 32K internal ROM, and they were expandable to 96K. The RAM, they come with 80K. Now that wasn't true. They did a bit of jiggery pokery when they advertised this as 80K RAM, and people thought, whoa, that's way more than a 64 or 48K one. But some of that was video RAM. So there was 16K of video RAM. You had to then take that off that 80K, and that gave you the RAM you had. But anyway, it was expandable up to 128K maximum, and that was with the super expander, with the add-in cards you could put inside them. And along with its Microsoft Extended Basic and CP/M, it made it a very, very capable machine. The keyboards were really, really nice on these. These were sort of the chiclet type keyboards, and they were very nice to click, 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 click. And they are a standard type, plunger type key switch, a bit like the Cherry MX style. So they work very similar to it. Anyway, guys, we will open this box up and have a look. This is one from my collection. This is probably one that's going to get moved on later on after I've done a full service on it and made sure everything's working okay. I have about 3 in the box and I only need 1. I'll keep a Mark 1 and the Mark 2 that are in the box, and then the others I think I'll just move on. And again, as like the 318, these early retail pack box ones are quite big and unwieldy to pull out with the polystyrenes that are very tight inside the boxes. Generally, the easiest way I find is you undo both ends and slide it out. A bit like that. This one down. It's got the nice Spectra Video polystyrene on it. I don't know why I'm getting that flickering through that screen. I don't know if you see that or not. It's a bit better. It's something to do with the white balance anyway. But anyway, here we are. And so, take the polystyrene off. And inside the box, we have one Spectra Video 328. We have the Spectra Video 328 Mark 1. And you can tell by the labels on these that if it's a Mark 1 or a Mark 2, along with a couple of other things. Generally the Mark 2s had a big label on here which had RAM and ROM on them. And you'll see that on a Mark II when I pull one out, and the badge is a little bit different too. Other than that, physically inside they're the same. They just had slightly updated hardware internally, which made them a little bit more cost reduced. And as we see on the back, tape deck, expansion port, and this is where you can tell if it's a Mark 1. It has like a cassette type DIN plug on here, which was for the RF unit. And these RF units, as you can see, have the DIN connector. And this is an original Spectra Video one. Has the original metal Spectra Video power pack. And this is the Spectra Video TV RF adapter. Back in the day, these were very, very popular. So you could actually do a slider between TV and the computer. And there's just a little bit of filtering in here for noise, etc. And then because we have the obligatory RF cable there. With the Mark II, they changed, and all this got put inside here, so you didn't have to have this carry on, you just had the RF connector on the back, and we will see that later on. Now I'm not going to fire this one up and have it running, as I'm not 100% sure whether there was an issue with this or not, and I'd want to do all that before we fire it up and put it on. But I will grab a known good one that I know is actually working fine for the 3x8 Pico expander that I'm finishing up. So, but as I said, nice keyboards on this. This one's a little bit hard, but depends on what it's done over its life. It probably needs taking apart and a good clean. But as you can see, it's quite yellowed in areas. And back in the day, these plastics did this. It was to do with the fire retardant in them. So with the fire retardancy in the plastics, they leached out this yellow. You can clean it by retrobrighting them, Some plastics are okay with it. Some of them you'll find will get like a marble effect to them. It shows its age. It's not bad. I mean, if anything, you could pop the keys off and retro-bright the keys, which should be okay. But if not, you can live with it as it is. But yeah, just the keys feel a little bit sticky in places, so could probably do with a good clean anyway, taking them all off and run them through the dishwasher on a warm cycle with a mild detergent. That would be fine. That would clean all those up and make them less gungy and clicky. But I would say probably needs to be taken apart and cleaned. But anyway, I'll put this aside, move this box out of our way, and we'll have a look inside. Okay guys, so the 328 Mark 1. So let's have a look at this. They're pretty standard. I'll put some eyes on so I can read what's going on. It's a power version, as you can see. Standard screws, as they all do. Now these are longer, deeper ones, and these are actually shallower across the front. So things like this won't physically go down in there to unscrew these screws. They just won't physically fit. So you do need to get a physical Phillips style screwdriver, or you got to get ones that these tips are a lot longer. And I generally just have a small Phillips screwdriver that I drop down into there for undoing those. I'll get myself a container to put the screws in. And the other thing I did is, quite a few years ago, I found a lot of these were coming in when I was getting them, and the screws were rusty in them. And so I measured up the screws and the threads and that, and I actually bought in bulk screws for the Spectra Video. And I bought the ones for the cases and the ones for the keyboards and that. So I have a good supply of brand new chromed screws in case any of these come in. They're quite rusted. Some of them must have been in damp areas and that, and they got quite rusty. So let's get me screwdriver. And that's what I'm saying, is that you need something that's at least that long to get down in there. Now you probably could get one for like your drills, how your drills and that have it, but they won't physically fit into the ends of these. So 6 of one, half dozen the other. And this one's not magnetic either, which is a bit of a pain. I do have some magnetic ones kicking around, but things like screwdrivers end up disappearing all over the place. And on these early ones you will find there's another screw in here. What this is a screw that goes through the heatsink they put on the video processor, and it screws it to the metal shield. So if you unscrew this one and take it out, it means it doesn't pull it off the top of the video processor when you lift the shroud off. So, and all those screws are exactly the same size. The other thing that they did with these is they've got, if this one hasn't been done, it'll have that horrible membrane that goes from the keyboard to the motherboard, which means you can't really get the whole thing apart. And yes, it still has it, as you can see here. Now the thing is you look, is on these early boards down the front down here, now I'll move this back, over here they had a set of header pins. Now these are all soldered into one side, so this makes me think, did they have an idea of putting down a set of header connectors to make a removable keyboard? Who knows? But anyway, that is a discussion for another day. Right, so as you can see down here is the heatsink. Now that's where that screw came through, and it screwed it on. So taking that out, it just leaves that there. it's had the top shield taken out of it. So that's one saving grace for us. And it's got the rest of the screws around it, holding it in. Now the thing is, with the Spectra videos, they had, as with the 318, the inbuilt regulators. These ones look a bit manky looking, so it probably wouldn't hurt to change these. They probably work fine, but just looking at the condition of them, they are a bit corroded and that, so it wouldn't hurt replacing these ones anyway. So that's one thing I may do later on. But anyway, obligatory 2 joysticks, power switch. These generally don't tend to give you much of an issue, the power switches on these. The ones that do give you an issue are the big squarish ones, similar style to these, the bigger square ones on the expanders. And I found that those switches were the very same as what they used on a lot of the early AT power supply square switches. And I have got some in a box. I'll just grab one and show you. Which is this style. These are a lot bigger than these, but it's that style there that are in the super expanders that play up. Now I bought a pile of these new because just about all the super expanders except for maybe 1 or 2 have had issues with the switches, and they lock and you can't physically open and close the switch on and off. And I measured them up and just got the right ones, rated the right ones, 240 volts at, I think it was about 4 amps or something. Be on here. 6 amps. So they're 120, 240 volt. So that's what I got. I got some brand new ones of these. Some of them are a grey or a creamy colour. These ones I could only get at the time in black. It is what it is. At least it's a switch that works. So if anybody is looking for that sort of stuff, just give us a yell and I can probably point you to where I got them from if I can remember where it was. It was probably through AliExpress, so I can have a look on my back feed and find out where it was. So this is hot glued on again. So as I was saying, I'm pretty sure they put the heatsink compound on these video display processors, and to hold it there they've hot glued around it so it didn't slide around all over the place. And then the metal shield generally went on top of here and screwed into there. I think that was to help with the metal shield would take more heat away. I don't know. Assumptions. But anyway, as you can see, this is the early version because it has all the TTL logic in it. It has all of that. Those are muxes or gates for the expansion connector. This is all your over this far end here. Sorry guys, yeah, shot. Over this far end here is all to do with your video out. That's your combiner chip. And then we have 4116s. And down here they are, I think they're 4164s. So this would be your video RAM, and this is your system RAM. And then because this is all the rest of your control logic. And then you have your sound chip, your peripheral I/O, that's your regulator. And those are, they RAM or ROM? Probably ROMs, I would say. They were probably ROMs. And that's a shifter of some sort. But yes, and so most of your power was over the back here, so anyway. But that's what they were. They were a very basic machine. I like these in one way compared to the Mark IIs, and that you can fix this. The same as the 318 Mark 1s, you can fix this. Z80 processor, ROMs, and you can get modern versions. There's that new one called the One ROM, and you can tell it to be whatever you like, and I'm pretty sure it uses some form of a Pico. Sound chips are available. If not, you can socket it, and they have this in a Pico as well, and those are dime a dozen. They hardly ever fall over, and they're just your peripherals. A lot of people didn't know, but they thought this would be running a lot of the joysticks and that, but they don't. A lot of the joysticks come out of the sound, because the sound actually has peripheral IOs in it, and they use that to advantage for those. So mainly this would handle the cassette port and a few other bits and pieces on it. But anyway, this is the inside of them. They are pretty basic. Now, we can see on here, it is one of the early boards. I'll just try to see if I can see a revision number on this for you. But hard to see on an angle. It does have copyright Spectra Video International Limited, Hong Kong. 328. It's got version 1. So it's a version 1 board. It's got like 01, then version 1.0. Copyright Spectra Video International Hong Kong. So this is one of the very early ones. And you can tell by looking at this, this is proper fiberglass PCB. Not like that other one we saw, which was sort of browny coloured. They're slightly later. Now this bit of white tape you sort of see in the end here, you go, oh, what's this for? This is because that's where the leads for the LEDs, for the power and the caps lock, comes down through here. And what they did is, with the metal shield on it, they would short. So at the factory they just put like a couple of bits of white insulation tape as an easy fix over the back of these. That's what that's for. Anyway, to fix the problem. So anyway, that's all us. That's our minus 5 or our minus 12. I think it's minus 5, and that's our 5 and plus 12 down there. What we can do is I can undo this and take this board out if you like to have a look at the back of it, which may be nice. It's not really interesting, but hey, never seen one. Let's have a look. I'll grab that for putting these ones in, because these are slightly shorter. And on these boards inside, if you've seen some of my other videos I did, you just got to be a wee bit careful. Some of these had the brass inserts in the board, and that made it you don't put the plastic threaded screws into those holes. If you did, life was not very happy afterwards, for you or for the screws you were putting back in. The other thing to remember is if you do pull these apart and you go to put them back together, this metal shield goes on top, not underneath. If you put it underneath, you're going to have issues plugging anything in to the expansion slot. And a lot of this is just for earthing, and it stops other things being put into it that can actually cause an issue. So just something to be wary of. Now I'll just have to spin this around and get in your way for a minute so I can check to see where these other screws are. And I think it's just that one. The ones that I'm pretty sure hold the transistors or the regulators down, you'll find that those are just through the board themselves. I think right, there was one. I was sure there was one hiding, and that's in between the joysticks. Right, and then this, I hope, should lift up and out. No, it is. So there is something else screwed around that is holding that in. And it is it that? No. Ah. The other nice thing, and not so nice thing, is these early ones had more screws holding things down than the later model ones did. So it's another one that was down there. So, and that should be, yep. So, and to take these out, as you lift them up on an angle, so the angle that has the video processor comes up, and then you gently slide it to your right, so the joystick and power switches come out, and then you should be able to lift it up. Sometimes you'll find things will get a little bit tangly over this side, and it's generally to do with the shield underneath, and it can become a little bit of a pain like that. So it might, yeah. And the other thing is these posts. This is the one that goes, that other one that went through here into here. it's such a high post, and it's why they didn't make it lower and that post longer, I don't know, but it just makes things difficult to get out. And I think I have to leave the shield behind and take the board up by itself, because they, as I said, this with the keyboard being stuck to this thing, it is a pain in the backside. That's better. And a lot of this trying to get it out is this RF shield, as you can see around here, it's been biting on this post. This is a pain in the backside. This is why it wasn't just a small one that just came through the board. That was a bit longer, and they got plenty of room. Could have been a lot bigger. Who knows? Open up. This has been opened, and I can see that someone's done a bit of a clean up of rust on the base of this. You can see it through scuffy along there, but that's all good. It is nice. It's got the little mylar cover sheet, plasticky type sheet, to stop shorting from the bottom of the board. And here we are underneath. Now it looks like, I don't think that's from factory. These wires I don't think are from factory. These have been put in, someone's had an issue with this. It may have gone back for repair. I'm not 100% sure, but I would have to have a look to see why that's all like that, to whether that is an issue with something up in this corner. Yeah, I have to have a look at that. It's coming from some resistors and other bits, and it's all to do with this, with that RF port, the output port here for the video and audio. This looks like it's had some work. It may have been done in the factory, I don't know, but I would have thought if it was done in the factory, they would have done something a bit better. And this cut tape around here, this may have been done aftermarket. It may have been on a report sheet that came out that you have to do this to fix certain problems. I'm not 100% sure. Right, to make sure those went short. But I mean, the only way to find out is if this was plugged in and turned on. We would actually see if this would work or not. And yeah, that bit of tape on there is not very good. It's not sticking down. It's obviously done quite a while ago, because this electrical tape's just not sticking. And that could point back to the days when stuff was actually quite cheap and nasty when you could get it. And yeah. A lot of these don't need the RF shields in them by today's standards, but it's nice to have it in there, and it also electrically shields the expander when you plug it in. So I mean, this looks like it did have a bit of rust in it. It looks like it's been cleaned up a wee bit down in here. So I mean, if I was going to do a preservation thing on this, I would peel it off and I would probably give it a clean with some IPA, and then I'd put some rust neutralizer over it. The underside doesn't look too bad, but I might put a little bit around the back here, and then leave that to go off. Some of the rust neutralizers you get, they make it go a blacky colour, and it's fine to paint if you want to paint it. And I actually found a really nice light grey that you will see in some of my later ones when I do the expanders, because I've had to use it on some 601s. That the metal was quite pitted and rusty looking. But anyway, I mean, this is not molested other than those few little bits. Yeah. But that's the underneath of it. As I said, you can see the two sets of pin headers here. And it was like a bit of an afterthought, maybe. Who knows? But they are just wired straight through in pairs. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, looking underneath, it doesn't look too bad. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's had too much. There's a little bit of solder around here where the flux has not been cleaned off. And on the bottom here, it's got a 328-01 version 1. So this is the early version 1 boards. And as I said, looking at it, you can tell it's a fiberglass board. But yeah, there's like a little bit of soldering been going on up here. So it may have been an early revision that had to get repaired that may have had issues. But anyway, to make life easier, I'm going to put the shield back down over that post. The problem becomes is the metal shielding for out the back. So with some of these, you generally, when you go to put it back in, you can get it over the post, and then you have to lift the shield up to slide it backwards to get it back in. And as I was saying, if they made it so the keyboard was unpluggable, it would make this part of it so much easier. In the early days, what I used to do is to take this out and have this loose so it's not dragging the whole lid around with me. But go down, but then as you see, when you get down to a certain point with this, you have that metal shield in the way. So if we gently lift this up, I can then get it and slide it down and in, under, yeah, and down. As I said, a bit of jiggery pokery to go on, but you get them down and in there. And then of course, if you had the metal top, that can go on after you've screwed this down. Some of these screws go in with the metal top, and then the metal top goes on, then it gets done in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws to hold down the outer sides. The rest of them I think went in before that, but we don't have that, so we're just going to screw these in. And these are all the same size screws for the space-board. The only thing you got to do is make sure your holes line up. Got that one in the middle on, the one over in the sides. And when you put these plastic screws in, I've been doing it for so long, I pretty much know when they're in the right place or not. But when you put these in, turn your screwdriver in the opposite direction, and you'll hear it go clunk, and that means it's dropped down into the thread hole, and then you can do it up normally clockwise. You hear that go dink, that means that it's in the screw hole, and then you can gently do it up so it's hand firm, and that's done. And you think for such a big machine they'd have a huge cartridge slot. They don't. It's only a little 30 pin cartridge slot, so 2x15 I think is it. Yeah, I think it's a 2x30, 2x15, which is 30 pin. Whereas when you went to MSX, they went to a 2x25, and they were a 50 pin connector. Yeah, so it's just things you got to keep an eye out for. It made the cartridges go in and out easier. I mean, I will, when I clean this up, I will strip the whole case, clean the case and everything. And when I do that, I will replace these regulators as well. And it's just a matter of it being nice to do. It's not a, I have to do this. It comes to a point of, if they fail, someone else is going to have to get it done. And the way they look, I'll try and bring it up to you guys so you can have a bit better look. But they aren't very nice. And that's why I'll leave this for last, because it's got to go on the top. I have done it in the past, not thinking, and I've chucked it on, put the board on top, wrestled with it even more with this underneath to get it in, to go in, last 2 screws, and then I look at it and think, it's not going to work. Because when you go underneath the board, you're going to short it, aren't you? Never mind. That's just something to watch for. Right. So those are all in there. And there we go. And a lot of the times you don't need to fool with any of this over here in the video. Some boards I know, like the Spectrums and that, the colours wouldn't be very good in that, and you've got to muck around over here with variable resistors and capacitors and stuff like that. These didn't generally have that problem. They do have adjustables here if you want to play around with it, but 9 times out of 10 they are fine. The other thing is if you'd like to go down the track of modding outputs on these, you can socket these and put in a Pico 9918 Pico, and you can get them with a VGA output or with an HDMI output, and you can get one of those. It's a newer version out from the ones I did quite a few years back, and they're all surface mount technology, so they're very low profile, so something to keep an eye out for. And if you do something like that, then you can actually get a low profile socket and put it in, or get yourself a set of tuned pin headers, so they have to be fine pitched, and solder it in so the long pins go through the board and the short pins are above. Clip the ends off underneath the board, and then you can solder the Pico directly on top of those short pins, and that'll keep it even lower again. And you can just run your little ribbon cable. If you wanted to, you could desolder the DB5, or I think it's DB5. DB5, yeah, it is. You can desolder that off the board and run your cable out through there, and you don't have to cut any holes. And it still leaves you the slot for plugging in your cassette port, etc. If you're not going to use your cassette port, then you could just bring it along, just pop the ribbon cable through here, plug it into your Pico, and you could just have it out the back here on a flying lead. But as I say, these are the biggest pain, and I find the easiest way to fix these is to put a set of 90-degree single row pin headers here, ribbon cable from here onto JST connectors, and then it plugs in either this way or this way, whichever way you prefer, but it's soldered to this side, and then you can unplug it in two sets, unplug them, and you can take the keyboard off completely. So therefore, then we go like that, and that plugs that back together. But as I says, this feels a little bit tight in there, and I'll show you these regulators. I don't know if you can quite see those. They are looking a little bit manky in the back there, so I think that will be something I will do, but it's not something I'm going to do now. It's not a biggie. It's easy enough to take it out. If I do it, I'll think about doing this. A lot of these I ask people when I do these upsell them, do they want the mod on it or not? And if they don't, I leave it as it is. If they do, then I will do the keyboard mod for them as well. I'll screw all this back together. And the other thing I do have to do is to sort up some form of video capture for these, so that I could put it through to capture it on the main screen that you're watching at the moment, because I don't have anything at the moment, and I have to use a camera and spin a camera around and just point it at the Commodore screen that I use, and that's not the best. Yeah, it really needs a better way of doing it. And if you're looking at anything half decent, that'll do different scan lines and run different types of outputs and things like that, they do get very expensive, and it's not something I can afford. You know, I can't afford hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a piece of gear that I don't use a lot. So yeah, you will just have to put up with me for now, guys. Right. Nice thing is this has got all its original peat on it, and all its original labels, and the label does go with the label on the box that it was in, which is really good. And so that is the Spectra Video, a 328. It's got a little bit of that tobacco-y type smell, so that could be what some of this yellowing is. It sort of has that. It has that sort of smell to it. There we go. Standard connectors on that side, 2 joysticks, power switch, power connector. These are the same or very, very similar to the Coleco, and I think the TI-99 I think had a similar one to it. They're not wired the same, so don't get caught out with that, okay? And then you have your bus expander, your cassette port, and your video out port. We have nothing on that side, nothing on that side. And on the top here, as I said, the 2 LEDs, one's your power, and one goes to your caps lock. One useful bit of information on these, if you're looking at buying one, and they say it's working fine, plug the power in, and turn it on. You don't need a video source. The power light should come on, the caps lock should come on and go off. If it doesn't, there's an issue. And if you push the caps lock key and it won't come on or off, or it comes on and stays on and won't go off, there's an issue. And a lot of the times that is to do with the Mark IIs, and it's a problem with the PLA. And unfortunately, there is no replacement PLA for these. The information was never found or never passed down to make replacements for these. There are a lot of people who have done a dump onto a Pico and made a 328 inside a Pico. Mainly works. There are a few idiosyncrasies that don't quite work very well. But yeah. I prefer the real hardware. But anyway, yeah. The nice thing with these Mark 1s, if you have that issue, it's logic. And you can fix that. You can fix the standard logic. With the later model ones with the PLAs, find a good PLA. That's the other problem you got. You got to generally, if it's a good PLA, it's come out of a good system. The only way you'd want to do that if you got one that's had a smashed case or a smashed keyboard and case, or the board's broken or gone up in smoke and hasn't killed the PLA or anything like that. That's the only way you're really going to harvest it, unless you're really, really lucky and can find some brand new ones. So anyway, that's that. So this is the Spectra Video Mark 1 in all its splendour and glory. So there we go, another one down, and we're getting into the real machines that made Spectra Video what it is. So I hope you're liking these videos, guys, insides of them and the Spectra Video history. We will be going to the 328 Mark II, and there were a couple of different versions of that released. There was the Premier Big Box release, a bit like the 318, the 328 Mark IIs and the 318s, but there was what they called the budget version, and this was later on, and these were like a white box release, smaller, less in them. They were all sort of dropped down in size with everything. A lot of these big boxes, they came with the cassette decks and all that in separate boxes as well. And we'll be taking a look at some of those peripherals shortly. I wanted to get the main machines out the way, and then we'll start on all the add-ons to it. Alright, so we've got a few more machines to go, and the history going down the track. After that, it gets a little muddy with when the parts came in, when they didn't come in, so I won't focus too much on that. It'll be roughly around a date. Alright, because there was some of the stuff was multiple releases at the same time. They may have been developed differently, or they may have had multiple teams developing it at the time. Anyway, guys, hopefully, as I said, you're enjoying this series. And as I always say, have a great day. Have a great week. And we'll see you on the next one.